DisrupTV. And of course, we've got our amazing guest here. We've got Vala Afshar, our co-founder, our chief, he's chief evangelist at Salesforce, but more importantly, he's the co-founder and of course, the key personality here on DisrupTV. We've got Elle, our producer, and of course, we've got two amazing guests. We're going to introduce them in reverse order. Ron, where are you coming in from today? What are we talking about?
We are talking. I'm in Rochester, New York, and we're going to talk about Superteams, the science and secrets of high-performing teams.
Excellent. And Dave, where are you?
Good morning, Ray. I'm in San Diego, California today. Sunny San Diego.
Woo-hoo. We love that place. We just did a retreat there. It's pretty amazing. All right, with that, let's just kick it off. Let's do the count. Ready, Elle?
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV shows. Ask Ray, myself, our distinguished guests your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He is the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see Ray, my good friend, on TV just about every day. He's on CNBC, Fox Business, Bloomberg, CNN. He's one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. As you know, Vala Afshar is the chief evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Boundless, Autonomous, #1 sellers on Amazon, and The Path to the Future. I hear he might be working on his third book. Executives around the world pay attention to everyone's insightful and inspirational tweets. And when he's not keynoting, leading, hosting, or talking to you at events at Salesforce, you can find him speaking on business outlets like the #1 Bloomberg show and the business show in Canada, BBN, and of course, posting insightful insights on ZDNet and being interviewed around the world. So he's one of the top keynotes in the world if you haven't talked to him. But hey, we're here. We've got some great guests, and we always look at CEOs, startup leaders, authors, and of course, people that are market making in the world. So who do we have to kick it off today, Val?
How lucky you and I are to have some of the smartest, most accomplished CEOs in the world joining us. And today we have Dave Rhodes, CEO of Verint. Dave brings decades of experience growing and scaling software businesses with a passion for technology innovation that drives outcomes. That's something we're all very keenly interested in today, more so than ever before. Verint is a leading enterprise software company specializing in customer experience, automation, and workforce optimization. Verint provides an open AI-driven platform utilized by thousands of organizations worldwide, including vast majority of Fortune 100, to elevate customer engagement, streamline operations, and drive digital labor efficiencies. Dave joined Calibrio as CEO in 2024, leading the workforce performance company through its combination with Verint, after which he was named CEO of the combined organization. Before Calibrio, Dave held senior executive roles at Sauce Labs, Unity Software, Paradigm, Emerson, Autodesk, bringing consistent track record of scaling technology businesses and driving growth across global markets. Dave brings a track record of turning technology companies into market leaders with deep expertise in the go-to-market strategy and software-driven growth. Welcome, Dave, to DisrupTV.
Vala, it's an honor to be here, and Ray, great to see you again. We've been in and out of cycles together for many years now, so it's really an honor to be here.
You look great for someone that just came back from Asia, so we gotta give you a lot of credit here. So, but yeah, I saw your post from Singapore, Hong Kong. You're doing a little tour out in the APAC. We're impressed here by Orlando. Orlando is an amazing individual. Verint was acquired by Thoma Bravo in late 2025, then merged with Calabrio. And now you're running both of these areas. This is a big shift, but we got workforce, we got contact center, we got different things coming together. This is a different market too. There's no playbook like there was in the past. So what's energizing you the most? How does the strategy shift, especially in this overall CX market? And then, of course, I mean, this is the hottest space in CX is CCaaS. I mean, it's out of control. I literally look at my friend Liz Miller on my team, and she's having, I mean, the pace of announcements, the innovations that are going on, just moving from folks onto the cloud and then onto AI. I mean, it's been an amazing journey. So what's going on your end?
Well, you know, let's start with a macro factor here that I think many of us take for granted. And it was starting before COVID, but certainly has accelerated since then. And that's the idea that the contact center and CX in general, omni-channel CX, is one of the last ways where enterprises or critical operations in the public sector actually interface with their end customers. Think about it. Think about the last time it was that you went to a bank branch, as an example. And so as a result, 750 billion USD is spent in this space per year. And truth in advertising, 700 billion is on human capital. And you know, there's been procrastination for a couple of years now that contact center would go dark and it would be all digital agents. We never believed that. We were set up for the hybrid workforce to begin with, and we've been right. And so now what's going on in the industry is that all these enterprises, 14,000 customers for Verint, are scrambling very quickly to leverage AI, not to dismiss human agents, but to make them more effective, to make them more efficient, to enable them to accomplish their mission along with the customer's mission on the other side of that interaction.
That's
amazing.
It's great to hear your perspective in terms of the impact of AI on the labor force. What awesome responsibility you have. You sit on one of the world's largest CX databases in the world. You're combining Verint's automation data and Calabrio's workforce data. So incredible war chest of knowledge, information capabilities. And you're powering, globally, what, 17, 18, 19 million contact center people, agents.
Yeah.
With petabytes of data. Tens of millions of people. Yeah. So again, incredible amount of data serving tens of millions of individuals. Talk about your philosophy, your view in terms of impact of AI on the workforce and how the combined power of your company will elevate these individuals to be able to delight their customers and stakeholders.
Yeah, well, look, we love this merger for so many reasons. I was at Calabrio, much smaller company, and pursued trying to put us together for several months. And our thesis was absolutely right, which was, a great combination of workforce management applications along with a war chest of AI agentic capability. Putting those things together, we can now solve every problem largely for contact center workflows. And so that was the thesis. We also got a really complementary set of customers by working together and a go-to-market motion. But the bottom line is we both shared this philosophy that technology needs to be hyper focused on driving business outcome, P&L specific outcome, higher revenue, lower costs, lower agent attrition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we came together. The merger was very quick. Once we got it through the regulatory bodies around the world and got it financed, our merger came together very quickly, and we're executing, and everything is playing out exactly like we had hoped.
Wow. You've got like some of the biggest companies with you. I mean, like anything from insurance companies like New York Life CVS, Aetna, to AXA. You got banks out there. You've got, Citibank. You got Deutsche Telekom. Like big ass users. What's the shift? Are they getting ready to go from human agents to, I'd say, like agentic AI agents? And what does that teaming look like? I say this all the time. Like, we're the last generation of managers to only manage humans. We know 80% of transactions are being machine to machine going into the next 24 months. The dynamics. I mean, you're not going to have your agentic AI agents, like quit or jump off on you, or having kind of like workforce maladies. But we also do have to make sure that the humans are in place. So what are you doing? What are they doing? What are these big customers thinking in the back of their mind? You don't have to name the customer, but just strategy wise, what's important to them?
Well, I think all of them have woken up to the fact, again, that human agents are not going away. Again, we really dug our heels again as we were putting this merger together, in the face of a lot of industry analysts and the financial community who underwrote the deal saying, what are you going to do? Agents are going away, seat counts are going down. We said, no. First of all, a lot of our industries are regulated. And as a result, they're going to have to, for many, 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 many years, have
still need humans.
Right. So that's number one. We do a lot in healthcare, and I use this as I hopefully not too macabre example, but I met with a CIO this week of one of the largest hospice care programs in the country. And his comment to me was, our customers are usually customers for, on average, about 2 weeks. I know that's horrible. It's a fact. And what he said was, you know what? We will never, ever put an agent in the interface with that customer interaction. But what we are doing, and this is consistent with whether you're the hospice center or the bank or the luxury retailer or the large airline services provider, you are looking for very specific surgical places to insert AI to very quickly take either the real simple stuff or the really insanely hard stuff off the agent's plate so they can maximize the time interacting with us, whether it's voice chat, in-app, whatever. And so what that looks like, for example, is largely everybody is using what we call wrap-up bot to take the transcription of the interaction and largely summarize it and save it away. For compliance reasons, for customer sat reasons, for customer record reasons. 18 months ago, there were rooms and rooms of agents that would stop and get 120 seconds to write down what just happened in that call. So that's just a simple example of where AI is well on the road to driving major efficiency in this $700 billion labor market and making agents better. And the last thing I will say, by the way, is overall agent attrition, human agent attrition, is average about close to 40% annually. And some firms, like the hospice company I talked to this week, 2/3 of their company, of their agents, turnover annually. Can you imagine if 2/3 of the Constellation Research people turned over annually, how insanely hard it would be to keep up what you guys do relative to your competitive advantage? Exceptionally hard. And so
that would be so hard.
By deploying AI surgically and thoughtfully versus Big Brother, what we're actually doing is driving up agent retention because they're being successful, they're doing more interesting work, and by the way, they're getting promoted and making more money. And so it's actually a big strategy on how to retain these people and drive down the cost and disruption of agent attrition.
I love that. Amazing. I mean, that is the superpower of AI adoption, is that you can focus on more high value work, more meaningful work. I managed a call center for 10 years, and it was the most rewarding, most difficult work. But to watch college graduate professionals spend hours, days, weeks on highly deterministic, highly repeatable work, it frustrated me as an engineer because I knew this is what makes you feel icky on Sundays because you're not looking forward to work on Monday.
Yeah.
So I think that's the power of AI. And you know, my company launched AI agents as the first point of contact for our support website. In the past 12 months, over 8 million conversations, 5.5 million completely autonomously with agents, 2.5 million where the agent escalated to a human. So the number is more than 2.5x in terms of conversations with autonomous agents. And they're getting smarter because this is not automation, this is recursion. With every output, that output goes back into the input, and we're getting smarter and smarter and smarter.
Yeah.
Your point of view as a CEO, championing AI adoption, where do you see this evolving to? I mean, I'm not talking about general AI, but where do we see ourselves 2-3 years from now? How much of the life cycle of a case can be handled by agents in a fairly accurate, comprehensive way?
Well, you know, we'll see it. We'll continue to see this continuum of taking the repetitive stuff off the plate. That's, you know, full speed ahead. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see RPA on steroids, the orchestration elements of the use case. So let's say I call and I'm talking to my mortgage department and I'm doing a change of address.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to then go talk to your I don't know, your stockbroker in the same bank and, you know, re-authenticate, you know, make sure the proper change of address. So you're going to see a lot of RPA on superpowers. And what I would say back to the original question, let's not forget all the great things that AI is capable of that we as humans, Ray, you remember the video game industry, we process at maybe 120 frames a second. There's so much that we just can't, like as humans, we just can't do. We'll never understand. And so where I'm going with it is, if you take that fact and you take the fact that this contact center is one of the only connection points to your market, Verint isn't just for breakfast anymore. In other words, it's not just for the contact center, it's for the product managers, it's for the CFO, it's for your strategy person, it's for your M&A person, because now you have AI on top of hundreds of millions of interactions in near real time. And now you're understanding what's going on in your market. We have a customer who they build Invisalign-like retainers, and there was a problem. All of a sudden, the contact center started getting hit. They didn't know what was going on. I got pain in my mouth. The product manager got involved. They used our conversation intelligence product to really summarize what was actually going on and correlate it back to a poor manufacturing batch.
Wow.
And so almost immediately, within 48 hours, they were able to get a new manufacturer online, reproduce that lot, and get them out to many customers who hadn't even called yet as a result. So
what would have taken potentially months, maybe even many months, that deep contextual understanding in real time, the power of this hybrid human AI, you were able to, in this particular case, sounds like resolve it in a matter of days, maybe weeks. That's incredible. As someone who, again, managed services business for a decade, the cost of having defect in the field and customer attrition, brand damage, that's an incredible use case. That's an incredible use case.
And if you remember, Vala, the old way was literally analysts in a room listening to the interaction, mostly voice. If you just look at the sheer magnitude, they could only get to 2, maybe 3%. If you got an army of them,
this call for
maybe they get to 3%. So that use case could have been missed completely.
That's amazing. And I'm telling you that the time for a 10,000 person company, if you can save, 30 minutes a week, that's giving back like 600 employees to your company. So the amount of waste that happens in call centers by trying to synthesize and connect the dots and coach in process. And again, it's an incredible opportunity to remove waste. And to me, waste is anytime you assign a wrong resource to a task, anytime you overutilize a resource, anytime you underutilize a resource. The power of what you're doing with your platform is helping remove waste in business. And I think that's ultimately the biggest challenge companies will have competing in an AI-powered company. The more wasteful they are, meaning wrong use of resources, the harder it is for them to grow and gain market share. So it's incredibly important what you're doing. right?
Well, to add to that, what Val is saying here is you're getting people off of POCs onto real projects. And so most people get really attracted to the operational efficiency, the automation, the cost savings. What we're also seeing is in some of the advanced users is they understand it's more at bats, right? You have cycle expansion. You can actually do more things in a shorter period of time. And lots of people are excited about that. What are you seeing in your markets in terms of getting the difference between the CEOs that get it, the executives that get it, and the executives that don't? How do they bridge the gap? And I say this because every CEO has now become the chief AI officer.
Yeah. Why can't you do it with AI? Why can't you do it with AI? I think the best practice, honestly, is, again, be real surgical around some use cases where you see the high potential to drive P&L impact. So being extra precise around defining what you want to accomplish, find a small number of things that are fit for purpose for that, get those in place first. I mean, look, I'm old, way back, Y2K, MRP systems, move to cloud. So much money was on a journey to nowhere because leaders didn't say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's partner with the CIO and the head of product, and let's figure out what we're really trying to do here. And we find ourselves, fast forward into nowadays challenging our customers to say, wait a minute, you don't need to deploy our entire platform. Let's just drive up your containment rates through a self-service journey. Let's start there. And in fact, let's start for just change of address. Okay, victory. Okay, now let's take a second bot, let's take a second agent and use that to connect them with the data set. Great, now we can be more mindful around a more sophisticated journey. And you get exponential benefit by doing that. The laggards, here's what the laggards are doing. They are doing a POC with us. And, we're early days. And so some use cases were perfect, some need tuning. And then they call Salesforce and they say, we're going to do a POC with you. And then they call ServiceNow and the point is there's so many choices and there's so much noise in the market that they get paralyzed. And so my message to CEOs and peers that seem to be lagging, I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter. If it's not us, it doesn't have to be Verint, but just pick a path, pick some use cases, partner with Salesforce, partner with Verint, partner with ServiceNow, Five9, whoever, but go and get started and prove some ROI and start to learn. And then you can build off that.
We got a great comment from our friend Tracy. Here's one. So much money is still on a journey to nowhere.
Yeah, so I watched your keynote, Dave, where you talked about AI investments and the actual P&L gains. So you have a flat line compared to what looks like an asymptotic line, and how that gap continues to widen. Ton of investments in AI, but hard to measure, and your focus on outcome-based business models drive home the importance of mapping the investment to actual, net promoter score, CSAT improvements, retention, renewals, all the, language of business is finance. So where talk to us about where, as a CEO, where do you position Verint a few years from now, competing against hyperscalers and horizontal agent platforms? Where do you want the company to go, given the fact that you again have one of the largest CX platforms in the world that's now powering tens of thousands of customers around the globe?
This might sound odd and uninspiring, but there's so much to do and so much money in our little $50 billion patch. SAM, 50 billion of SAM of technology, software technology, growing to 70 billion over the next 3 years. There's so much for us to do in our little place.
Sure.
I have no desire to be a CCaaS. I have no desire to sell compute and storage. There's really a lot of great things that we can do and deliver value. And so we're going to continue to be one of the market leading de facto CX companies on the planet. We're going to leverage this pure behavioral data set that we have. We're going to continue to be an open platform. Back when I first met Ray at Unity, we were all about customer choice. for the developers to use the tooling that they needed. We continue to be that way. And, you know, I aspire to continue to grow and build durable value for my investor and for my customers through solving, you know, harder and harder problems with, you know, a great high investment that we're making in R&D today.
Focus accelerates. Focus accelerates. That's the most exceptional CEOs that I have the privilege of working. Their superpower is focus, alignment, which accelerates. That's awesome. Well done.
I have a quick PSA for all the companies out there that are trying to evaluate, do I go build on my own, you know, LLM open platform, or do I, you know, continue to go down the path with, you know, subject matter expertise, application, and SaaS companies? I think, again, having gone through multiple industry transformations and been on the front end, you know, in the Jeffrey Moore model, everybody always forgets about who their core business is. You know, when I started in the industry, I was in the semiconductor software business, and, you know, you just put it out there. Motorola thought they were a software company all of a sudden, an EDA company versus a semiconductor company. And you can go on and on and on. And I would just say, for those of you out there in our space that are thinking about, can I build this on top of one of the, you know, on one of the open models? It's hard. You need the subject matter expertise. You need the compliance. You need, you know, security. It's hard. And so don't get distracted on what your core business is. You're a bank. You're a healthcare company. You're a public service entity.
Now, great comment here for Andrew Nebus. He's like, there's so much for us to do, and spot on. There's a lot of abundance. You know, I'm going to add to that, right? I mean, what we're seeing at this moment is, you know, you basically automate the deterministic. You try to get the compliant execution. On the probabilistic side, we try to improve the precision, and it's really about orchestration excellence. We're going to keep seeing that across the board. I mean, it's just a very, very hard thing to do. And so expertise is kind of a commodity at the moment. So experience trumps expertise, wisdom trumps knowledge. We're going to continue to see that coming across the board. So any last words? I mean, when you think about where the future is going to be, we bring you back here next year talking about what's hot. Is it going to be open weight models? It's going to be like, you know, we're going to be talking about LLM wars, or we get into things like decision velocity and context and models and all these other things.
Well, I think it's both, but more the latter. You know, you bring up a really great point, and again, part of our open system is we love everybody. We support everybody. And the reason we have such a significant magnitude of true AI revenue in our, you know, $1.3 billion business today is because years ago, we were working with machine learning techniques to transcribe information. When good enough is not good enough, when you have to be deterministic, you use natural language processing, right? Because you never put an AI in a model in a risky situation, at least today. And so long-winded wind up to say right tool for the right job. And I think the industry is realizing open weight, this version of Claude. Okay, let's do an open source model for this particular use case to drive down costs. Or a non-AI model, something, you know, that's more old school machine learning. So I think the industry is doing a great job thinking about that. I think, to your point, continued focus on, okay, does it deploy quickly? Does it not degrade the user experience in our particular case or put the user at risk? And can I drive tangible P&L impact from it? That's what we're going to be talking about a year from now. And that's why the SaaS apocalypse was BS, by the way.
We're here with Dave Rhodes, CEO of Verint. Thank you so much for being on the show. And of course, this is episode 450 of DisrupTV. I can't believe it, 450. So, all right, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Al.
Thank you. Exceptional CEO. I agreed with his sentiment. Speaking of exceptional guests, this is our cleanup hitter spot. You know, the Red Sox have been doing well, so I need to have a baseball analogy where our guest comes and hits a grand slam. Ron Friedman, author of Superteams. What a beautiful book. The science and secret of high-performing teams. a bestseller, top new seller on Amazon. Book just came out in June. I look at the back, Ray, and so many of our guests that have been on Disrupt have endorsed the book, including Marshall Goldsmith, Dory Clark, one of our favorites. NPR called it an outstanding book. Fast Company called it the ultimate playbook for how to build exceptional teams. Ron is an award-winning psychologist who helps leaders build high-performing teams. Ron contributes regularly to Harvard Business Review, has been featured in all of the main New York Times, Financial Times, Bloomberg, NPR. He's been featured more than you, Ray, I think, which is pretty unbelievable. Ron is also best-selling author of The Best Place to Work, which we all know, and Decoding Greatness, and founder of Superteams, Inc., where he delivers keynotes, develops leadership training programs, and advises senior executives on building stronger, high-performing organizations. I had to cut his bio short because we only have 30 minutes. Welcome, Ron.
Thanks so much.
TV.
It's great to be here. I really appreciate the kind introduction.
Hey, Ron, we're super happy to have you here. And I was reading the book, and I'm realizing that all the things I thought were great about building teams, I totally wrong incorrectly. It's almost like I picked up the Y Combinator playbook and thought I could build a startup. It was exactly that, poorly done. And so, I mean, I thought it was a dog. I thought it was a pool table, ping pong, free meals.
Perks. You lean into perks.
Perks, right? and you basically crushed all my myths. So, but no, in all seriousness, you studied the world's most successful teams. And how do you find them? And what did you learn? Because there's a lot not to do, especially out here in the Valley.
Yeah, so. I appreciate you pointing out all the counterintuitive insights in the book, because there were surprises to me as well going into it. So over the last few years, my team and I have done a deep dive on what high-performing teams do differently. And here's how we did it. We interviewed over 6,000 workers, and we asked them two simple questions about their teams. Number one, how effective is your team at achieving its goals? And number two is, compared to other teams in your industry, how would you rate your team's performance? And then we looked at the teams with the perfect score. It was a very small group, about 8%. We call them super teams. And we looked to see, what do the super teams do differently? And as it turns out, the same habits turned up again and again. And here's what they are. The first habit is they tend to get more done by better managing their time, energy, and attention. The second is they don't just collaborate well, they actively make one another better. And the third is, even when things are going well, they're not satisfied. They're constantly looking to build their skills and improve over time. And the fascinating thing for me, and I think the inspiring message for anyone listening, is all of these habits are learnable, which means by building the right habits, any team can dramatically improve its performance.
That's awesome. So the book references key ingredients: a shared goal, clear roles, and a belief that members genuinely need one another to be successful.
Now, those are the basics for building a team. Okay, so that's very different than a super team. So those are the basics for how you take a group of strangers and you turn them into a team. And most people don't actually belong to a team. They're just kind of a group of people who happen to work together in the same department. And I think that's why we see so much dysfunction and so much disengagement. So here's how you turn a group of strangers into a team. As you said, you need, number one, you need a shared goal. So if I'm trying to get home by 5 o'clock to take my kids to soccer, and you're trying to get a promotion, we don't have a shared goal, and that's going to lead to tension. The second thing is you need to have role clarity. I need to know what I'm responsible for, and I need to know what you're responsible for, and I need to understand how those two things intersect. If we don't have role clarity, then one of two things is going to happen. We're going to have drop balls because I think it's your responsibility, you think it's my responsibility. Or the other thing that happens is we both think it's our responsibility, and now we have a turf war. And so both are problematic.
The worst.
Exactly. And so the final thing is you need interdependence. Interdependence is just a fancy psychological term. It means we need to both feel like we need each other to succeed. Now, this is where a lot of sales teams get into trouble, because what ends up happening is I have a quota, you have a quota, and not only do we not have a shared goal, but your success is problematic for my success. So now we're competitors. We're not teammates. And so again, if you don't have the three things, you don't have a shared goal, you don't have role clarity, you don't have interdependence, you have a recipe for dysfunction. And this is where most teams get it wrong. Now, super teams is not about the basics. Those are the basics. If you want to build a super teams, you need something else. And that's where the three strengths come into play.
And you mentioned energy and attention.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about energy? Like how do you increase the energy in a team to get them to super team?
Well, this goes into how they get more done. Okay, so that's the first. There are 3 buckets in this book. The first is how super teams get more done. So before I tell you how super teams get more done, let me paint you a snapshot of how the average team operates.
Sure.
The average worker loses 18 hours a week to meetings. They then lose another
18 hours a week.
That's the average. It's much higher for senior leaders. Senior leaders, more than half the week is gone to meetings. I mean, you're a senior leader, you know this.
Yeah, no.
Your job is
You
to
don't
be
go to
in
any meetings. Do you go to any meetings? Like, what's going on?
No, I don't want to put a number. We're live.
Yeah, exactly. So 18 hours a week in meetings, then another 11 hours digging themselves out of messages. So that's email, Slack, text messages. What does that leave for real work? It's about a day. And what happens when you have to cram a week's worth of work into a single day? You look for ways to create more time. You come in early, you stay late, you work weekends, or when you're in the office, you're multitasking because you're trying to find more time. Sure. Super teams are much more deliberate with how they spend their time at work. They're 50% better at avoiding unnecessary meetings. They're 54% less likely to schedule recurring meetings. Recurring meetings are particularly problematic because they're so difficult to extricate yourself from. If you have a recurring meeting on the calendar and you no longer think it's valuable, you have to have a very uncomfortable conversation with your teammate. It's almost like breaking up with someone professionally. People prefer not to have that awkward conversation, and so they stick with the meeting. It's a waste of their time. The other thing that super teams do is they don't just play defense on meetings, they also play offense on focus. They're much more likely to set aside dedicated focus blocks during the day where they can get work done without having to monitor their messages. They do things like meeting-free days, except they don't call them meeting-free days. They call them get things done days because they want to reinforce the purpose behind the initiative. So if I was to summarize everything that high-performing teams are doing to get more done during the day, it comes down to this. They're minimizing distractions and they're maximizing focus.
You know, Vala, my only standing meeting is with you on this show. I don't know.
I know. And I like to think this is a super podcast, but the number, when you said 6,000 interviews, was that 8%? So you got 480 some odd super teams.
Yeah.
It feels like the larger the organization, the smaller that percentage of super teams. Is it a function of size in terms of?
It actually is not. We looked at size. Okay. It's not a function of size. And the reality is that I do agree with you, though, that you're probably more likely to find super teams within an organization because culture is going to be a leading indicator of whether or not you have them. So if if leaders have the authority to set aside dedicated focus blocks, that's going to spread through the culture. But if that is something that's frowned upon, chances are more teams are going to be suffering.
Makes sense.
It's crazy, right? I mean, so when you think about what this means going forward, like, certain leaders ask certain questions, and how they ask questions or set the tone actually are very different. So in that 8% group, right, what's the one question great leaders ask in meetings that most others don't?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite insights from the book is we looked at how they run their meetings. And what we find is that on super teams, leaders are much more likely to ask a very particular question. And that question is, what are you stuck on? And that's a very different mindset generator.
We ask this all the time. That's true.
How meetings are typically run is it's basically a parade of accomplishments, right? We go around the room.
What did status check? Oh,
what did you do this week? Great. Hey, round of applause. Let's go get them, right? But that makes people feel like it's a waste of their time, right? Because now it's preventing them from getting their job done. But when you have a leader who says, what are you stuck on? It does a few things. One is it normalizes challenges. Right? It sends a message that on this team, it's normal to be stuck. If you're not stuck, maybe you're doing something wrong. Maybe you're not challenging yourself, right? So the other thing it does is it turns the entire room into a collaborative forum because it's almost like a mastermind meeting because now everybody wants to jump in and suggest ideas that help their teammate move the ball forward. And so far from it becoming, from having meetings be time wasters, now it's the thing people look forward to because they get answers to their biggest challenges.
I love that. And I suspect it reinforces shared success. Somebody has an issue, the team focuses, and now you're collaborating with the aim of making sure you benefit from the wisdom of the crowd.
I want to add to Vala's point. It's commonwealth of self-interest, right? I mean, those things are all aligned, right? You suddenly got everything in place. I mean, and if you're not, you just get off the team, put them on something else. Don't waste their time.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's so much easier to do that.
And the other thing it does is it focuses people on their real obstacles, right? So if you know you're going to be asked this question at the meeting, you're going to do some thinking ahead of time so you have a good answer to the question, because you know you're on the spot, you're in front of your teammates, you want to look good, but it focuses you on the thing that's really in your way. And a lot of times we don't have that clarity. What we have is a kind of an ongoing sense of dread of like, I don't want to work on that project right now. And so that leads you to procrastinate. But when you have the clarity of this is the thing I'm stuck on, that helps you move yourself forward, even if you don't get the answer at the meeting.
We had Jeff Bezos, chief of staff. He was called Jeff's shadow, Colin Brywood, on our show. And he said in a meeting, Jeff tends to ask the lowest senior person in a room to start the conversation. Do you feel if you're starting with that methodology, people have the courage to talk about what they're stuck at? Does it matter in terms of your seniority and where you sit on a hierarchy in terms of how radically transparent you are to talking about what challenges you face? Or no, if that becomes cultural norm, anybody is willing to share that they need help?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're raising a great point, which is unless you have the psychological safety to speak up, doesn't matter if the question's being asked or not, right? And so it starts with the leaders. And what we find in our research is that leaders of high-performing teams do some very specific things to create that psychological safety. The first thing they do is that when they don't know, they admit it. They'll say, I'm not sure, but I know who to ask. And that tells people that it makes it safe to admit when you don't know. And it kind of sends a signal that the more important thing is having the desire to learn. The other thing they do is when they talk about mistakes they've made in the past and what they learned from it. And that tells people mistakes aren't something to hide, there's something to learn from. And the final thing they do is they tell their team very explicitly that if you are not making mistakes, you're probably not growing. And I have some examples in the book. I talk about Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, where he tells his team he doesn't expect perfection. He actually wants them to make 15% mistakes, because if they're achieving perfection, it doesn't mean they're getting everything right. It means they're moving too slowly. Right. The other example is Reed Hastings. Reed Hastings, of course, formerly of Netflix. And at Netflix, when all of the shows were a success, he'd get a little worried, because what it told him was not that they've dialed in the radar of what customers want. What it told him was they weren't taking big enough swings. And so what both of those examples illustrate is the importance of having leaders who emphasize the importance of making mistakes towards the path of getting better over time.
These are great insights. And I'm just thinking about all the things that I've done wrong in my life.
This is a therapy session for you. It sounds like.
But here's the one I completely agree with. You argue we're better off avoiding video calls. And that goes against everything we've been told. And I'm just going to say this, like, when I was not on video calls and on audio, I was so productive. And I hate to say it, but I was a multitasker. Like, I could be actually getting groceries right now, chatting with you, still doing the interview, putting something out, come back, fix something else, go back and look for something. And like, these video calls are such time sinks, except for this interview, because we have to do it.
Yeah.
You get the idea. I mean, it's like, why the hell am I on a video call? I literally, like, with my best friends, I tell them, like, look, let's just get off video. Let's get working. I don't care if you're multitasking. Why do you say that? I hope I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. You're exactly right. And in fact, I'll tell you, if you are on video calls all day, you're going to have less energy and make worse decisions than if you were having the same conversations on the phone. And
it's like the equivalent of having like 4 drinks at the bar, like that.
I don't know if I have those statistics, but here's what happens when we're on video calls. First of all, when you're in real life, it's completely unnatural to stare someone in the face for an hour straight.
Yeah.
But on video,
and keep a smile,
Yeah.
like oh.
On video, if you look away, it feels rude, and so we overcompensate, and it's exhausting.
Can we just do BRF training sessions so people are okay? Sorry, bitchy resting face sessions.
Yeah, so
I'm really not mad at you. It's just my resting face.
There's that piece. And then the other piece of this is that what happens when you go on a video call? What's the first thing you saw when you logged in today? Is you saw your own face. And so now that directs your attention inward instead of focusing on the other person. And finally, we have all these audio and visual delays that force us to piece together what's actually happening on the call. All of those combine to leave us with less cognitive flexibility, both during the call and then afterwards. And so, we got into this habit during the pandemic of getting on video calls. And it served a purpose at the time because people were isolated, but we kept that habit and it's no longer serving us. Now, I will say there are times when being on video is beneficial. One of those examples is when you're meeting a client for the first time. You want to establish that rapport.
Sure.
It's valuable towards that end. The other thing is when you have a disagreement, it's helpful to see the other person's expression, because if you don't, then you can misread what they actually mean. But if you have those established relationships and there's no disagreement to resolve, stick to phone calls. You'll have much more energy at the end of the day.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm really glad that our podcast is on video, because now I just learned if it wasn't Ray, would be doing a bunch of other stuff rather than listening to our incredible guests. So at least we have them for an hour paying attention.
I trust you guys are all pretty brilliant.
When I hear super teams and I hear you describe how super teams are focused, they're deliberate, they're intentional, they value shared success, they're certainly psychologically fit group of individuals. Are these folks also physically fit? Are these folks that are committed to exercise and strengthening not just their mind, but their overall well-being?
Yeah, this is what we looked at in the research. Is we looked not just how are they spending their hours during the day, but how are they recovering after hours? And what we found is that on super teams, people exercise for an average of 84 more minutes per week. Now, what that tells us is that is contributing to their success. And here's what we know from the research. We now have over 2 decades of work showing that exercise doesn't just help us live longer or look better or lose weight. It makes us smarter at our jobs. And it does so for some concrete reasons. Number one, when you exercise on a regular basis, you get more blood flowing to the brain, which enables you to sustain your attention more fully, makes you less distracted. The other thing it does is it activates the memory regions of the brain. So now you're soaking up information more quickly and you retrieve it when you need it. If you're in a leadership position, you need something called verbal fluency. Yep. That's just a fancy way of saying I need to find the right word at the right moment. Verbal fluency. You get that by exercising. The other thing it does is it puts you in a good mood. And if you think about anything you do at work, whether it's connecting with colleagues, winning over new clients, being in a good mood is a must-have. And so you get all of those features through exercise. Now, that doesn't mean you should leave work early and go, torture yourself on the treadmill. Far better to incorporate exercise during the day. We talked about multitasking. There are some bad uses of multitasking, like when you're trying to write something while listening, that's not going to be effective. But there are good uses of multitasking, which is having a conversation while walking. That's not going to interfere with your conversation. In fact, it can elevate the quality of what you say, because now, for example, if you take a walk outside, we're talking in the summer, take a walk outside, now you're in a new environment, and new stimuli spark new ideas. So you're more likely to be creative. And so incorporating exercise into your workday will make you more effective, not just personally, but also as a teammate.
That's incredible insight. Well, I'm going to see Ray on a treadmill on our future podcast. Which is not happening. I know he's going to take an hour nap after this, so he will recover. But it's that's happening, man. That's it. I've had the privilege of working with D1 athletes throughout my career, and just the discipline, the rigor, the focus of maintaining that balance of physical and psychological fitness. I can see how it translates to creating super teams. So
but let me just say, it doesn't necessarily require discipline. I think when we think about exercise for people who don't exercise, and by the way, I used to be one of them until I realized that exercise was making me better at work. And that's when I started to think, exercise is part of my job. It's not something I do after work for myself. It's an investment in my future performance. Now, the reason I'm bringing up the point on discipline is because if you view it as a matter of discipline, it's almost like punishment, like something you have to do. But the key to exercising regularly is to find something you genuinely enjoy. So for some people,
it doesn't feel like you need discipline. You actually look forward to it. It's not.
Don't optimize for exercise, optimize for fun. And if you happen to get exercise along the way, you'll stick with it. And so I'll tell you that you can get exercise all kinds of ways that have nothing to do with going to the gym. You can play pickleball. You can learn to play the drums. That's actually a very effective way of getting exercise. Go out dancing. Any way that elevates your heart rate and gets you sweating a little bit is going to be effective.
Albert Einstein, nothing happens until something moves. Just move. Yeah, movement.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, yeah, you can play the stock market and put puts. Definitely. I'm just kidding. Anyways. But hey, let's talk about another topic, right? It's kind of like part of the post-pandemic issues that we bumped into. RTO, return to office. So does it help? Does it not help? Do you do it in parts? Is it okay to do it 3 days versus 4 days? I mean, it's getting really ridiculous how they're slicing it. Like,
no, but those
what should we be
480
thinking about?
super teams, of those 480 super teams out of the 6,000, how many of them are in the office 3 days a week or more, right? Like, if I don't know if you can slice it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we looked at. And so,
okay.
there's a lot of conflicting evidence on this. Some research shows we're more effective working from home. Other research shows actually we're better off at the office.
Was it
so
the job
in our
function?
research, we looked at something completely different, which is where are super teams most likely to emerge? Are they most likely to emerge hybrid or in office or working from home? And what we found is it makes no difference. It makes no difference. And here's why. It's because how a team works is far more important than where a team works. And I'll tell you, I've worked with so many executives, smart, capable individuals who are forced to commute for 2 hours just so that they can get into the office, fire up their laptop, and attend the same Zoom meeting they could have attended from home. That doesn't lead to great teamwork.
But
what that leads to,
they wouldn't have caught you on All Things Considered on NPR.
That
the commute,
exactly right. That's true. But at the same time, what it does is it leads to resentment and burnout, because now they're forced to. Yes. And then what I'm, my sister is one of these people who's forced to go into the office. What they do in her team is they take turns. One person goes to. It's basically like they've got one employee babysitting an empty office every day of the week. It makes no sense.
So time hard for me. So they should just pay someone to go show up to the office and just
exactly. And so, it's one thing to say to everyone, okay, everyone's got to be at the office. That's one approach. Another approach is to say, look, we're going to trust you to figure out where you work best. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're all going to meet for strategic discussions. So get your pre-reads in on Friday so that everyone can show up ready to contribute. That is an example of how a super team would function, because it shows that they're making use of being together, but while still maintaining people's autonomy to decide where they work best.
Ron, you're going to come back on our show in a couple of years with another bestseller, and the question I'm asking you now will be maybe more germane 2 years from now. But can you be a super team if you don't use AI?
Well, funny you should ask that, because we just completed a new study. This is something that goes beyond the book. We're constantly looking at what super teams do differently, and we looked at how super teams use AI. And the first thing I want to point to, just to directly answer your question, is super teams are using AI far more frequently than average teams. They're using it constantly. Maybe in terms of, like, we asked people which best reflects how often you use it. One of the answer choices was constantly. Constantly was selected twice as high on super teams. But here's the thing that I think is more interesting, is when you look at how AI is affecting the workday, what you find is that most people actually are now working longer than before ChatGPT was introduced. So the question is, how can that be? How can that be? AI makes all of us faster. I can send an email faster. I can write a report faster. I can create that deck faster. If we're all getting faster, how is the workday getting longer? And the answer is because AI can shorten the workday or lengthen the workday depending on how the team uses it. Okay, so AI, here's what that means in practice, is AI can make me individually more productive, but it creates way more reading material for everyone else. It takes me much shorter time to create that report, but everyone on the team still needs to look at it, reflect on it, give feedback on it, correct? And we all have more coming at us than ever before. Super teams do not. Their workday is getting shorter. So what are they doing differently? Well, we found a few things. One is they're looking not just to use AI to get faster, but they're using it to make their work better. They're stress testing. They're asking questions. They're pushing back on AI. They're giving AI feedback when it doesn't get it right so that it continues to learn. Whereas average teams, they take what they get, they move it on to the next person, and they go to the next task. That's the first thing. The second thing is they're using it in a way that makes the entire team better. So they're sharing their best prompts with one another. They're not holding on to them. They're not. Cool. That's cool. So that way, when one person gets better, the whole team gets better. That's cool. And the final thing is they're very aware of when AI is making work worse. In other words, they don't assume more AI is better. They push back. They look at, they are constantly talking about where is this good for? Where is this not? And their leaders are encouraging them to eliminate AI where it does not help. And so for all those reasons, they're using AI to get better over time and improve the quality of their work. And here's the fascinating thing is they're feeling less threatened than average teams by AI because they can sense the team getting better and improving over time. Whereas people on average teams, it's lengthening their workday. They're hiding their AI use from one another, and their quality of work is sinking because they're just throwing around work slop.
And I'll tell you, it's a little bit counterintuitive because initially, when you are pressure testing your thesis with your favorite language model, you do go back and forth. You do challenge erroneous assumptions. And so, you know, in a blink of an eye, you've spent hours going back and forth, literally like pickleballing with the language model. But because of the recursion capabilities of it, and the fact that it remembers the mistakes it made and remembers not your preferences, but your willingness to challenge dominant logic, that initial engagement, maybe a little bit longer than you expected, over time, you are becoming better. And the fact that you can share prompts, that's great. I'm going to take that back to my team because we don't do that enough. And we should, because it's common sense. It just makes sense what you just said. But so give it a go. Initially, I feel like it's a little bit more taxing, but it's worth that initial investment because you're going to see a colleague. I don't know. I call it a colleague now because I speak to it like I speak to a colleague. It's kind of weird when I say it out loud, but it feels like a colleague. It does make you faster and more efficient over time. It really does.
To put a bow on this, I really think that the first kind of level of discussion about AI is, can it make us faster or not? And then the next level, this is the thing we're going to be facing. You said in a few years, I think it'll be a few months, is not does it make us individually faster, but does it actually move the team forward? And the answer is it depends on how the team uses it. It's not enough to all be using AI. We have to be using it very intentionally to make one another better.
And I think it's if you focus on scaling effort only, you're going to miss the full potential. If you can scale effort and judgment, so automation scales effort. This type of iterative use and constantly getting better. I feel like it's eliminating blind spots, really pressure testing thesis in an honest way, and so it's scaling judgment.
No, you're getting cycle expansion. You get more at bats.
Cycle expansion. Wow. Okay. So they said
revealing
things
in
of
my
wisdom.
book. I gotta stop talking. I gotta stop talking. But hey, beyond the modern day, Bruce Tuckman. We've got Ron Friedman here. This is not Norman Storming Foreman Performing. We've got author of Superteams, the science and secrets of high-performing teams. Please stay after the show. Get into the green room. I got something to ask you. So stick around if you can, Ron. Otherwise, I'll try to reach you. All right. Let's wrap up, man. Thanks for being here on the show, Ron. We'll see you in the green room.
This is an episode I'll be watching this weekend because lots of wisdom nuggets were dropped.
Govinder will be watching this weekend too.
Yeah. Oh, well, we have our super fan when we talk about Govinder, who also is part of the super team because most people may not recognize how much he influences who we have on the show. And certainly as we wrap up the year with our favorite books, he's our go-to guy to help us figure out how to eliminate the debates that Ray and I have. In any event, next week, because of Labor Day, we're not going to have our show. So you get to we're giving you back minutes.
Reruns.
Yeah, watch the replay.
Watch the replay.
Yeah, exactly. We should actually do a scoring of our favorite episodes. This was episode 450, and I don't want to humble brag, but I will. Less than fraction of 1%, less than a fraction of 1% of podcasts ever make it to 10 podcasts or more, double-digit podcasts, and we just had our 450th today. So it's kind of super work that you and I have done for the past almost 11 years. We will come back 2 weeks from now for episode 451. We'll have Maria Ross, author of Empathy at the Speed of Change, the most disruptive leadership strategy you're probably getting wrong. We'll have Dr. David Bray, who's a first ballot Hall of Fame inductee to DisrupTV, distinguished chair of the Accelerated Stimpton Center and principal CEO of LDA Ventures. We'll have Haral Chandarana, CEO board member at Veltris, and Jason James, author of Make It Work, an IT playbook for mergers and acquisitions. So jam-packed in 2 weeks.
Vala, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT say that only a fraction of a percent of podcasts make it to 450, and only 5% make it over 100 episodes.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty awesome. All right, so we're in that elite fraction of a percent. I love that. Let's hope for another 450. If it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. We look forward to catching up in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.